Hi, my name is Tyriece Simon, news writer for SEScoops, and I had the pleasure of interviewing these lovely people. They are collectively and individually one of the most ambitious and hardworking independent wrestling content creators in the game, by far, by far. And just so happens, also from New York. Ladies and gentlemen, also have their own network as well. Janelle for HR, Sir Wilkins, Mr. Black, the Jobbers Podcast. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having us. It is just as much as an honor for us to be a part of this collective and representing and showing our representation in wrestling and in life. So thank you for having us.
No, thank you. Because again, when I say hardworking, most hardworking, ambitious content creators in the game, I'm not kidding. Like you literally. So you just coming from something in wrestling, which I don't know I can talk about or not, but
you can talk about it.
You can. It's fine. We talk about it on the show all the time.
Okay, you just came from training with House of Glory, right?
Yes, correct, sir.
Yes, just to do this interview, just leaving that to then do this. So I totally appreciate you giving your time and being able to sit with me.
Yeah, no problem, Big Dogs.
And like I said, all from New York. This is rare where like I'm actually interviewing people from New York, usually from the West Coast and everything like that. But I have you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, wow.
Where in New York do you live, you know?
You said, where am I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. And then Circle, we already talked about. You're literally right near me.
Yeah, Rosedale, Queens.
Rosedale.
Oh, okay.
Jamaica, Queens. You heard me.
You are not even. Don't do that.
I mean, he could claim Queens.
No, he's from Queens. It's funny because worst ongoing joke is because people really get surprised in knowing that they're both brothers.
Really?
So when they So when you say that, they get to like, wait, are you for real? Like they think it's a joke, and we're like, no, like they got baby pictures together, like they family. I'm the eyeball out when it comes to them, and then they both Haitian. So then when they start going on, I'll be like, okay, guys.
Yeah. Well, it brings me to we talk about this podcast to get to know. How did this podcast come together?
All right, so who want to answer it this time?
No, you answer it because every time we do an interview, either I answer it. So no, you.
But yo, we definitely used to do it every time,
and that's why. And that's why this time.
You tell it the best.
No, I don't. This why this time.
I'll say it.
Thank you.
So, me and Janelle and I were doing another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an old business partner that I was doing a podcast with. And I had told him that we should do a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a little iffy about it. And I was like, yo, we should do a podcast. Maybe we should get a girl on it, a woman. And he was like, yeah, we should. But I didn't know Janelle would want to do it because she has a busy schedule. Because she's always like, globetrotting across the country and across the world. So
to add to his story though, so he had posted on Facebook, is there any females that like wrestling and want to talk wrestling? I was offended. I said, excuse me, why would you not ask me directly? So then that was the excuse I got was, you're always busy, and and I understood it because it was him being mindful of just me and my life. But for me, it was his, it was his baby, and it was his, kind of like vision. And I said, you know what? How can I be the best friend and not be supportive? So I was like, of course, I will make the time. I will. It honestly is probably the longest relationship I probably have had. Is this podcast? Is this podcast probably much within the last 10 years span? Probably the longest one. So it definitely was a journey. So I'm gonna let you tag Sir Wilkins back in to finish the story.
So. We were doing it was Janelle and I and the other individual. We're doing the podcast, and then it's funny how God works in mysterious ways.
Yes, he does.
So he had went to on vacation to Puerto Rico, right? And he was like, yo, if you guys want, because we were like fresh. I think we were like 6 or 8 episodes in, something like that. Not a crazy amount of episodes. So I didn't want to take a break because we just started. You can't just be missing episodes when you just start. So he said, yo, if you want, get a guest for this episode, for the coming episode that I'm going to be away. So I got my brother. And at first, when we were doing a show with the other gentleman, he was like the moderator, host type of thing. And I absolutely hated it. I thought it was stupid. But he was adamant about being the host and the moderator. But when when he went away, I asked my brother to be on. So my brother was like, yeah, I'll come on. So then he slotted Janelle back to the moderator host position and had me and my brother debate. And he kind of fucked up because the chemistry between all three was just on point the first time around. It was a really good episode. So I think 5 episodes later, 6 episodes later, we and him get into like creative differences per se. Okay. And basically he pulled a Stone Cold and took his ball and went home type of shit. So
unplugged everything, deleted all the episodes.
Wait, what?
Yeah. To this day, like the episodes don't exist. Yeah.
Oh, that's grimy.
So that's why, so that's why it's actually funny though, because when you look back, and once again we get asked this question, the history of the Java Tears podcast, it's always like we meet and Wilkins had a beginning, but you wouldn't know because there's no proof. No,
there's no proof. There's no episodes. I think I might have like a few of my like Instagram archive, but like in general, he deleted all the episodes, got rid of them, whatever. So I was like, hey, I asked my brothers, like, do you want to do a podcast with me? Because I still wanted to continue because I knew there was something there. Right. So we do our viewing parties at this bar called Legends. So I called them, and we had our original camera guy named Leo. Nasty boy.
He's definitely he's an OG of the podcast.
Nasty. When I say niggas nasty.
But he was our camera guy. This is before, like, when we started, this is before, like, it was so accessible to do podcasts, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like, we would rent out, like, breathers. They call them breathers in the city, like little office space.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a conference room.
And bring the equipment to this like our mics, our cameras, all of that, and just set it up at these little office spaces to record the podcast. So our engineer at the time was this guy named Leo. So it's us four. We're sitting in a bar and we're like, all right, cool. We're gonna do this podcast. We can think of a name. So we sat for like a solid hour and a half, ate some chicken wings, and tried to figure out
the hardest way to figuring out a name for a podcast. Like, I don't know how people do it.
So we literally sat there and then we Googled names, and ironically, all of them were taken. Anything that was like somewhat wrestling related, it was taken. So then we went with Jobber, and then we have this friend named Larry who we're cool with, who used to always troll on sports websites and be like, I got a couple of tiers of Giants fans. I got a couple of tiers of like fans, stuff like that. Right. So then I was like, maybe it's tears, and then we were like, Jobber tears, and then
it just hit. It didn't. Like the meaning for the Jobber part is more or less of the description of the underdog, someone that people typically don't look at, someone that doesn't get that they still play an important part in the piece, but don't get recognized in that way. So when we first started, because we were unknown, no one knew us, no one was riding with us the way that now is a little different. But then it was just us, so we were just like, well, we're the Jobbers. And the Java Tears podcast, all like our comments, our opinions, our feelings, our emotions, are the tears. So it's really how that came apart. And at first, the name, this they didn't like it. This one didn't like it. He was just like, he wasn't sure. He was like, I don't know. And I was like, no, let's give it a try. And then, we kind of always shorten it. Like when we were in the old space, the first year of the podcast, because actually it's interesting to see the progression of like studio spaces.
Oh no, I seen the last video you did. And I seen the comments, everybody's like, y'all got to keep this spot here.
But it was a mixture of, listen, if you listen to the audio, the visual, everything just progressed. So just keep that in mind. But in our old space, we had a dry erase board, and I'm always creative. I love painting. As you can see in my room, it's blurred, but I have paintings all in my room. And I always would draw our name on the board, so as the background.
Right.
It was, and then we shorten it sometimes. We do like JTP, so that it just all started to kind of come together.
Oh, shoot, you're right, Chanel. I didn't realize that.
It all rolled together, and then when we blinked, it was already a year in. So we were just like, okay, cool. And then our always, I don't want to say mission, but our always thing has always been to help put others on. Like it never. After a certain time, it just was like, all right, we love talking about wrestling. This is cool. This is fun. We're doing it. But we also wanted to give, our friends and people that, wanted an opportunity, the space to, kind of like do their thing, and we all be supportive in that. So that's kind of where then the network, about a year and a half after we started, kind of like played in part. So where we were able to kind of get our friends that, were like, they wanted something, they were hungry. And we're like, all right, listen. Let's just create a network. Let's have everybody, support everybody. And it's always, it's strength in numbers. And that's kind of like our mentality for that was like, all right, we got this community. Let's continue to build it. We had, Wilkins has the Dream Parties, been doing it for over 10 years. So that helps build the community, but also now building a community for podcasters, that's a different type of level. So we were like, all right, let's see what we can do. So it's been a ride, I will say.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple years, to say the least. And the thing is, we've seen the growth in like what we've done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you, when you're in the trenches, you don't feel it or see it because you're like, oh, you're just going, but day by day. I think we saw it when we did Jobber Slam 1, and I think we also saw it and felt it when Janelle and I went to WrestleMania.
We were in Dallas for Mania weekend. Yeah, it gets, that was, I've had people come up to me before when it's just me, but since it was both of us there in Dallas, it was like an extra person that people can see too. But it was just weird where like people would like be like, oh, Jobber Tears podcast. Like there was a guy, I was coming from SmackDown after the Hall of Fame. And me, my homegirl Danielle, and Dre, who's a part of the network, shout outs to Your Sports. We were coming down the escalator, exiting the building. We're just leaving. And me and Danielle just talking about something. I don't remember what. We were laughing. We were talking about something. And then the guy touches Dre because he's behind us. He's like, is that Janelle from the Jobber Tears? And Dre goes, you have a fan, but he's yelling. Like imagine exiting Barclays and someone's just hollering. So we're at the American Airlines Arena and he's hollering, Janelle, you have a fan. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I don't. And then I turn around and the guy, he's like, no, he listens to the podcast. I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, it's weird, but then you want to be like, thank you. Like, I appreciate you listening. But the part that always gets me is where they're from. So when I asked him, I was like, well, where are you from? Because I just, being from New York, we're in this bubble. Like, we just think everybody from here. Like, this is all we kind of know, unless you go travel like me. But he was like, Louisville. And I was like, Kentucky? Okay. Thanks for listening. Appreciate the love. And then the second night, the second night of WrestleMania, because you had your Cody shirt on. So the second night of WrestleMania, we finally get in the arena. We go to Access, and he was like, I got to get a Cody shirt. So then, because like, I'm going to wear it tonight. And I was like, okay. So we get to the arena, and we were sitting in separate places, but like we had like a central place where we were like, all right, cool, this is where we're gonna meet when we come back after the show. So we're about to disperse, and this guy, he was cute though. I was just like, oh, he's handsome. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, but I told Danny, I said, he looked at me like he knew me, but that was weird. Then Wilkins comes back with him. So I said, yeah, I do know him. This is scary. I don't know what's going on. And then Wilkins goes, no, he listens to the podcast. I said, oh, okay. That's probably why he looked at me the way he did. Okay. Now that makes sense. And I said, well, where you from? What? What? So it's at those, he said he was from Cali. So I was like, in those moments is where it's very rewarding in that sense where we don't really always know or understand the impact that we have, not only in like the wrestling community, but the Black wrestling community.
Right.
Until we have like those moments, like we have where we're like, people notice us or want our opinions on things, and at that point, that's why we're at that point where it becomes bigger than us, and we're like, okay, we're in this position, and we have to take, and we have a really big responsibility now on us to make sure that, you know, what we're saying, we're, you know, we not only believe in, but that is our honest truth. Because we can't afford, we're not in a position anymore, none of us are in a position to like just be lackadaisical or not take things serious, because people actually look up to us. People, there was a kid, he goes to the Fallout shelter. Shout out to the Fallout shelter, like Mr. Black does. And he posted a few days ago, he said, a year ago, I heard on the Tyriece podcast about this wrestling school, and then I started my journey. He started going to this school because he listened to the podcast and heard us talking about it.
And like, here comes wait. Here comes the full circle moment. At our first ever student show, I referee his first match.
Oh, that's crazy.
So it comes full circle. So that's why, like, even so, like now we're just we're more mindful, we're more understanding about like our role in our wrestling community. Right. So that's why it's always important for us to just be there and be supportive and kind of be that benchmark, and like, this is, you know, not to burn bridges, not like to be able to be collective. Our thing is always like, let's collaborate. Like, it don't always got to be us, because we don't like it, to be honest. Well, so us collaborating, you know, we try to give, you know.
I said niggas be hoes though, so I don't know.
You don't know. Don't even listen to him. But
you be trying to collaborate, you be trying to work together. I niggas be in their feelings about shit. And they be like, yo, I don't know.
Yeah,
you're right. This is literally the music industry without it being the music industry.
Yeah.
Like, don't nobody got Grammys, don't nobody got accolades.
Nothing.
But yeah.
And the crazy thing about it is, literally, I'll tell everybody in their face, everyone eats in this field. You just gotta finally do what you have to do. Don't get jealous of me. I will help you. You understand? Like, there's a few podcasts out there, like, if they tell you, they'll say, yo, Mr. Black gave me this whole idea for this whole show. I don't give a fuck. I just want to help the community. That's it.
Yeah, it's all about helping, because there's more to it, and it's bigger than us. Because the thing about it, if you think about wrestling, like podcasters in general, none of them really look like us, for the most part. Yeah.
The majority.
Let's just keep it above. None of them really look like us. They don't talk like us. They don't do it. And that was one of the main things that helped us out, because he was like, yo, this isn't the Black podcast, but it's like, yo, you guys really represent our culture. You guys really represent who we are, and how we speak and how we react to things. I may not agree with everything you guys say, but I fucks with how you guys say things. And it's a beautiful thing, because, to be honest, you want people that look like you, or even got the same culture like you. Even if you're not even Black, it's culture. It's the way you speak and the way you react to things. People can connect with it. You know what I mean? They understand it better. And I remember once when we did somebody came to the viewing party. He's like, "Yo, this is like the Wakanda of like Black wrestling fans."
He did say that.
Wait,
I said,
wait
what?
a minute.
I said, all right, thanks, man. Well, the bar's over there. Let me know if you need anything.
Like I'm like my favorite. I've never seen so many Black people that like wrestling in one place.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah.
Because you want to feel it's just, you want to feel like you belong somewhere, right, where you can talk a little hip hop and then talk a little wrestling at the same time, or talk about things. It's culture. That's just how it is. And as we continue to make content, other people continue to make content, it continues to grow. The culture continues to grow. Because it's crazy, because Black wrestling Twitter is a whole different multiverse from wrestling Twitter, regular wrestling Twitter. It's a whole different multiverse than regular wrestling Twitter. That's non-black. It's like it's weird and it's so like connected.
Right.
So it's been a crazy ride, and there's a lot of
journey
who've helped us on the way. Like I remember when we were changing studios, and I was like, I don't know if we should change studios or not because it's a little bit pricier.
That was a request of mine. I was like, listen, I'm trying to be the Angela Yee of this podcast, and me in this room, this conference room, ain't gonna hit. So I need a microphone. I need an engineer. I need a studio ASAP.
But I will remember when I had emailed. I don't know. You listen to the Joe Budden's podcast?
Yes.
So you know Ian?
Yes.
I emailed Ian.
Okay.
From the Joe Budden's podcast. I will never forget because I don't know how I found his email, where I found it at. Because I'll be creeping. Well, if I need to find out somebody's phone, I'll find it out. So I emailed him the podcast. I was like, hey, what do you think about it? And he was like, yo, you guys need to get better sound. That was the first thing that he emailed me back within 20 minutes. And I was like, holy shit. Mind you, this is when Joe Budden's at his peak.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like the time. So question, when you started the podcast, we're talking about 3 years ago from now.
4
right?
years ago, maybe?
Almost. It's going to be 4 years probably this November. Because we did the pilot episode actually his birthday.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was 2018.
2018.
Because, all the years end up being the same. So it's just like, we've been on this ride. It's like when you have Six Flags and you got that unlimited pass, and you can stay in that seat for that ride and keep going and going. That's how I feel. Like I'm just on the same roller coaster ride. So I never know years. But
yeah, it was about 4 years ago. This is right
but about 4 years ago.
They got their Spotify deal, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about 3 years ago I emailed him.
Yeah, it's going on 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about 3 years ago. So when I emailed him, this is when they were busy as fuck. They were busy. I'm surprised he responded.
That was the height of it.
And this is once again, this is God and the universe working together to like, hey, you guys want to go to the next level. This is what you have to do. Because he didn't have to respond.
Not at all.
And I always thank him for that because he kind of was like, no, if you guys want to do some stuff, you guys got to do this. So it's like, you know what I mean? It was a very helpful moment because it helped grow. And I remember we had Joaquin Morales on there, like, because I was against having too many guests on the show in the beginning because I really wanted us to like develop our chemistry and people to love us before they start loving guests being on the show. Because it's like J. Cole can drop an album with no features and go platinum. That's the point of you having a strong team together that people fuck with hard without guests. Because guests is the icing on the cake. Obviously, if you have a big time guest, your numbers go up.
Right.
But you want people to come back for your host of the show.
Right.
You want them to come back and always be like, oh, I gotta hear what Janelle's gonna say this episode. I gotta hear what Wilk's gonna say. I gotta hear what Mr. Black is gonna say. So that was the main thing. But we had guests here and there. And I remember we had Joaquin Morales on, and he was just like, yo, WWE, this is when before AEW came around. He's like, WWE is great, but you guys gotta show love to the independent scene. And that was the best advice that we ever gotten, because since then it really helped us out. Like, for instance, like we're at Wale Mania, Janelle and I, and these are people who are freshly signed, who knew who we were because we knew them from the independent scene.
Knew them from the indies, yeah.
So you know what I mean? We had these built-in relationships with certain people because we met them through the independent scene. Well, you know, we spoke to them. One of my first interviews was Austin Theory. And I met him. I bumped into him at this event
in Brooklyn.
And he remembered who I was. This is after him just getting off TV with Vince. Like, this is fresh. Like, literally, they were just on TV with Vince, And we had bumped into him because a friend of mine was doing an event. He was there, and he's like, "Yo, hey, what's up? How you been?" And it's stuff like that. Like Carmelo Hayes knows who we are. He's on NXT.
Right.
But
it's so weird. And I was actually, it's funny. I was telling Mikey that last night when we was watching NXT. I was like, I don't know him as Carmelo Hayes. So sometimes I'd be like, that's Christian Casanova. Like,
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's who I know. I don't. This Carmelo. I mean, it fits him. And once again, when you kind of get when we first started the podcast, we were doing it as fans. We were doing it as from that side of the track. And then as things progressed, and we all started to kind of venture and do our, still do our podcast, but do other things too. Then we came on the other side of the fence, on the business side of it.
Right.
So it's interesting now how, we're able to still give that fan reaction and love of the sport. But then also too, we want to educate just as much as we want to learn. So there's certain things on the business side of things that fans don't necessarily understand or would, because that was that whole thing where people didn't understand why Vince always changes their name. And I said, actually, it's beneficial, I think, for both parties if the names change, because, they have that property and you're not, and your actual name that you came in is not their property. So when you leave,
right,
you don't got to go through what Cody had to go through to get his name. So,
exactly.
So as we progressed with the podcast, we've also been understanding to the business side of wrestling, which I think a lot of podcasts, and it's not a shade or anything or a shot to anybody, but a lot of podcasts don't do, because they're in their fan realm. And I think when you're it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes I force myself to just watch things as a fan and not as somebody that does a podcast, because you got to have that balance. But I think now
owner.
that too.
Which we'll talk about.
I go to shows and now people think I'm scouting, and I'm just like, I just want to be a fan. I went to it was like last month or something. I went on a whim. I went to support a friend of mine, and then he ended up winning a tag title belt. So I was actually really glad that I went. But I literally sat in the corner and just was by myself, and I was minding my business. I wasn't really, I of course would see people I know, and they'll come over and say hi to me. And then Nikolai comes over and goes, "So you scouting?" I was like, "No, I'm here." I was like, "What do you mean?" So now that we all have these different caps that we have to put on, it's a lot of responsibility, but I don't think it's meant for no one else but us, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I get you. I get you. And one of the things that, you guys are saying all these great things, but saying it like just blasé. Like you're talking about how you have a network and just like bypassing all of that.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing there. Like the fact that you guys have a network, and that was just thought of hey, we want to just put out content, be able to put out as much content as we can. But this is we're talking about you having a network before really networks are now becoming more popular. Where like a lot of podcasters now or podcasts are trying to make networks. You already have that, and you've already been having that, and you've already been putting people on. It just goes to show how forward thinking you guys were, and how I don't know if did you knew then that like this is where podcasts are going to start going now.
You
did?
Yeah,
he probably did. He's the brainchild. All honestly, he probably did.
We got a lot of ideas. What's forward thinking is from the Brilliant Idiots, how they did their network. You understand the Black Effect and stuff like that. Is you always look at the leaders and you just do it on your level. And since we're like the founding fathers, we're just the one who just bold enough to like cross over certain things. Because, for example, for me, if I see something if I see Deedus Samara, back in the day, I used to do the intro myself. I used to do like, oh, this is Mr. Black, blah, 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 blah. And today, before Soultron, I got this from Deedus Samara. You understand? So we do a lot of crossover stuff. It's just wrestling, everything's borrowed. D'Lo Brown said it the best. I got the head shaking thing from next Friday, from Friday, and he brought it to wrestling. John Cena from Got the Viejo brought it to wrestling. Right. So I just took their idea and just brought it over. My brother was just very forward thinking. I said, yo, this is a good thing. And next thing you know, the network was born.
It was more about, I think Janelle had mentioned it was about in numbers and how it works. Because once you help everybody's working together, everybody's brand grows.
Right.
And everybody can work together and be like, hey, you promote, you do this, you do that. And it just helps everything grow to a bigger thing. And if you need help with something, we can help each other out instead of being left alone about it. It's one of those things. And when the whole thing was help each other out, this shit grows. Because I'm very, many people don't believe this, but I'm very team oriented when it comes to things, even when I'm at work or where I'm at, because I know we help each other out. This shit works out for the better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like LeBron never won a championship by himself. Jordan never won a championship by himself. Always remember that the Pistons beat the Lakers, who were full of a bunch of superstars, because they had a better team.
That is true.
So you know what I mean? Like that's just I've always seen it that way. Did I know the network things was gonna come? Yeah, The Ringer does it. Was doing a little bit of it. Did I know that numbers matter? Yes, because when you look at the bigger picture, everybody that works together grows together. If everybody's willing to put their egos to the side and understand the bigger picture of the situations, and even with the network, we've had like shows that's gone crazy good, and shows that's like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's just part of the growing pains.
Right. It's
part of the process, and I think one of the biggest lessons we've all have learned is that nothing's forever. But during the time that you do have something, you enjoy it.
Cherish it, yeah.
We here for a good time, not a long time. So that's what I always say. So
enjoy it and do the best that you can with it.
Yeah, but man, it's one thing to think about doing it, but like you guys just hit the ground right. Like just talking about how the podcast came together and how you had the misfortune of having somebody that destroyed your early stuff going on.
No, but that's okay. We're not mad about that. That's okay.
No,
but yeah, but
okay.
You right. But the good thing about me being on the board is I was smart enough to save some clips. So a lot of those clips you saw early on, the very, very, very was just like recycled material. That was like the last of it. We recycle, and people just thought it was a podcast already shot already. No, our first episode we shot was our first episode ever.
Yeah.
There is somewhere on the internet. It's the pilot episode. It's very rare. I can't find it anywhere. That one's floating around the internet. That one is something that good luck.
I'm gonna find it.
Good luck.
But I think one of the episodes that we were on, I think Leo still has. I gotta find it. It might be on Leo's YouTube page.
Yeah.
Hold on.
What I was saying is like the fact that you guys had that little slip up, right? And then you had to kind of get back together and formate your own podcast, and then finding a name for it, and going from there, and then having I was forward thinking of making your own network and getting that started and helping other people as well. Like you guys are, I want to say, almost the embodiment of just ambition and just hard work and just go get it. Like you guys just go.
But I think a part of it is us just being where we're from. We're a product of our environment. Like all of us, I think, and because that saying, like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Like people think it's bullshit. It really isn't. Like it is the truth. Like we're, how we were raised, how we were brought up, the city that we live in, the fast pace that we live in, our actual professions outside of the pot. Like everything that we've actually encountered just as individuals, I honestly have prepared us. Like not even us thinking about it had prepared us for us doing the podcast. And then the biggest thing in wrestling, and any I don't want to say old timers, but any veterans in the game, their number one thing is always make sure you pay it back. You pay it back. In wrestling, that is always going to be the same, is that you pay it back. And I think once we kind of got our foundation together, our first year, because it might have been another season, so y'all lucky.
Episode 6.
There's a hole in a wall in a conference room.
You guys,
that says,
huh?
What you found?
I found a couple episodes that he didn't delete, but it's on Leo's page.
Oh, send us it. Yeah, send us it. Hurry,
but it's on Leo's page. It's on our old camera guy's YouTube page.
Hilarious.
I just hope that when this video comes out that he's like he just don't start taking everything down again.
No. Like, and see, I think that, once again, every year we've gone through like a big transition, whether it be personally or in the podcast.
Right.
And just after a while, especially after that first incident, like we were very careful and particular about who we actually trust in our circle, who we, kind of let into that world of the behind the scenes with us. We're very particular about that because, it's like a relationship. It's like when you get, cheated on, you're like, I got trust issues, so I don't know how to move. And, and in wrestling, it doesn't help that I tell people all the time that I think everything's a work. So my trust issues with wrestling is out of this world. Right. So when we were trying to move forward, and, I think every year, for us, for me, the biggest thing was what I loved is that at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, we always set goals. We will always sit together and be like, okay, what is your personal goals, like as your individual for the podcast, and then what's our goal as a group collectively. And and if there's anything that anybody takes away from this interview, it is that I hope they, as come together with, whoever they do a podcast or anything with, that they set goals. Like our second year, our goal, even though we joked about it at first, it was a complete joke, promise, was to do the wrestling show. Complete joke. It just was like, wouldn't it be funny to throw our own show and just, really, and it was really, low key, it was really to just stunt on people. Right. It was really to shut everybody that doubted us. It was like on some like, nah, we don't know. But we were like, no, what if we do a show?
Here's the thing. This is the backstory to Java Slam. Java Slam was originally an event where me and my brother had a feud with another podcast. Like, literally, like, we shot a scene where I fought him in 7-Eleven. There's another scene where he fought me in the bathroom. There's another scene that
it was a build-up. It was an actual build-up.
We had a great storyline. Better than AEW sometimes.
Listen,
absolutely.
Listen. We jumped somebody at a wrestling event, and then, we had a match at the bar. Right. Listen, Java Slam went to his own evolution itself. Went from a Charmander, a Charmeleon, to a Charizard. So,
and I even throw it back. Actually, our first live show that we did, which was 4th of July weekend. So there's pieces of our history that we actually put together, and that's really where Jobber Sam, like our show came from, because they had the storyline thing because they brothers and it made sense. It was like Kane and Undertaker. It was ridiculous, but that's what they wanted to do. Cool, whatever. I support. And then we did our first live show at a bar at a backyard, and had everybody behind us. We had a live studio audience. Everybody was behind us, and we did our show in front of everybody live. But we did it 4th of July weekend. So the original plan for Java Sam was to be 4th of July weekend 2020. Mm-hmm. And then when we made the announcement in 2019, not knowing that the whole world was going to go to shit. So
that's true.
then we had to, which everywhere, because, we had made the announcement, and then at the time, not the main event, but the main attraction was Sir Wilkins in his first match against Simon Miller. And we had been building that for some time. Right. So it was, for us, it was a step back.
Wait. You mentioned a key part. What was said on Twitter that triggered the main event?
Oh, I don't know. I don't got the Bluebird, so that part,
You forget that 2 Black women cannot main event a wrestling pay-per-view, a wrestling event?
Oh, yeah. And then...
that,
Wait, who said
because
that?
Because I'm not on the Bluebird. So that's not where I got that from.
Wait, but who said this?
People are like,
so apparently, I guess on the Bluebird on Twitter, because they know I don't got the Bluebird. I'm not. That's not my realm. So there was a thing going around talking about Black women cannot main event shows, and it was a very like, excuse me moment. So we purposely wanted and did our main event to be two Black women of color, two Black women,
right,
to main event our show, because people will always say like, oh, women don't draw, or Black wrestlers don't draw. You know, it was so important for us. Correct.
Ridiculous.
For us, it was important to showcase not only Black talent, but also have the women main event the show. And that was something that was a non-negotiable. Like that was just what it was.
Yep.
So, you know, to do that, and you know, for us, I don't know what you would call a sellout, but for what low-key was a secret show and to have over 200 people there, I would say we did pretty good. We did pretty good for the first round.
Like, how to get that key part, Janelle? That's the key part.
Well, I don't have the Bluebird, so I didn't read that tweet, so I don't know.
It's important to note that, like, you guys are talking about a show. You're talking about a wrestling show for the SEScoops. You're talking about a wrestling show.
Oh, a whole wrestling show. Like, let me tell you that.
Again, just so blasé about everything. Just say we had a show when we know we had our own by us, you know, Jobber Slam that we created. You know, don't worry about that. Like, you guys are so blasé about it, but this is
it's not a big deal. It just happened. Oh,
you know, it was more or less, you know, like, you know how the streets be calling, the streets be talking, like that's just kind of like our thing. Is like, you know, people, I think for the most part doubted that we couldn't do the show, and you know, I think there were times where we were like, we don't know if it's gonna work.
Right.
You know, we not rich, so and that's one thing I heavily have to explain to any listener, viewer, reader. Putting on an independent wrestling show is expensive as fuck.
Okay.
Period. End of story. Expensive as it's not cheap. It's not easy. So when you have a collective of people of color that come together with their own dollars, and also to the amount of, like, I am always in debt to every single person that put $1 into Jobber Sam. We had over 12 sponsors for the show. Every match was sponsored.
It was like a NASCAR
awesome.
Awesome.
It really was. Like,
sponsors.
From the matches to even the merch. Like, we had an official Jobber Tears Jobber Slam shirt that shout out to Storyline Tees did that for us.
Hold on.
You know, we had so many people just latch on and be supportive for, you know, our first show, that it was so important.
See,
for that,
right here.
Because as you can see. It was in homage of the Survivor Series flyer. So like it was a lot, I will say. And it's a lot now because you got Jobber Sam 2 coming up.
Right. You should come. You should come if you're in town, August 20th.
You're here.
Oh no, definitely. Bet.
Everybody, bring the whole
family. Bring the whole family. It's going to be a family event.
Bet.
But a barbecue and after.
Hey, listen. Now you're talking. Now you're talking.
You know,
but it's just like, man, like I'm old. Like, like I said, doing my research and just like trying to, you know, get prepared for this, and just going over like all of you guys have done. Like, you're doing the podcast. You have the podcast network. Shout out to your, you know, you have the podcast you're doing now, which you do, I think, two podcasts a week, right? You try to do 2 podcasts a week, right?
Well, if we do like interviews, we try to keep it to the Tuesday nights. Like we started calling it the JTP Lounge, kind of make it cool and, you know, exclusive. Right. So any like interviews that we do that we can't do Thursday, we'll do Tuesday, Tuesday nights. But for the most part, we do record every Thursday, every week, unless like I'm out of town or somebody's like doing something. But we definitely try to keep it consistent, because we know that not only the streets want, you know, the vibes, right? But like for us also too, like it's a part of our lives now. Like, it's a part of us. So like If we don't
I remember
record,
once we were in the elevator with another podcast, and we were because they were recording in the same studio as us.
Mhm.
And we had asked him, I was like, when's the last time y'all recorded? He was like, I really don't know. And we all three of us looked at each other like, these niggas don't record every week?
It's fact. He's like,
What?
Some people don't.
we was confused. We was like, wait,
But people
What?
don't. Like that. That's what I think you guys are you guys treat it as it's nothing but like the work ethic that you guys have. Not everybody else has that. Like that's something that you gotta like. I hope you guys appreciate about yourselves is that not everybody else has the work ethic that you have. You know, there's podcasters that will do 10 episodes and then stop, and then do it, and then try to pick it up, months later and try to get it back. You know, like the fact that you guys could keep going and keep running, and then not only that, you have like I said, you have the interviews, but the interviews are like coming out constant. It's almost it seems, and then you have what you guys are doing individually. Like the work ethic to me, not only do I applaud you guys for it, it's inspiring.
I think one of the biggest things is you mentioned that the interviews are coming is because people saw what we did. We set the groundwork in the beginning.
Right.
So now we have some people like, yo, why haven't I been on your show yet?
Yeah, we get like threats now. It's wild. Like I get threatened all the time. Like, why haven't I been on your show? And I'm just like, well, why haven't you like act like it's nothing to come on.
I laugh. I laugh because I literally heard the same thing about 30 minutes ago when Sir Rogan was at House of Glory earlier. Like,
and he the main.
Like I've seen this. I've seen this.
Glad you were witness to that because now I need Wilkins to make that happen because I've literally for the past 2 years been wanting to interview him.
Of what he's done alone, what he's done by himself.
Brian XL from HOG. He was on the camera.
Yeah, but he acts Hollywood.
He's like he's like Denzel. Like he's hard, but he.
So Brian XL owns House of Glory.
Yeah.
So it's it's had tons of like superstars in there. Also, the main trainer and one of their champions is Amazing Red, who's like the underground king and probably the godfather to half the industry now at this point. So they're always like, oh, I don't know, because at first I didn't tell nobody that I was training and I was trying to keep them both separate, but at this point it just ended up like
it's hard. Yeah, you couldn't because then. Literally, people will come up and be like, "Well, why haven't I been on the show yet?" It's like, what? Yeah. Like, are we for real? Like, are we serious right now?
You can't separate no more.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful thing when people's like willing to come on because they're like, oh, okay, because it's easier. Like, and then also, we've lucked out where certain people have given us chances.
Right.
Yes.
For being on the show because they don't even have to come on. Like, for instance, rest in peace, Shad Gaspar.
Yes, rest in peace.
So, I was talking about it earlier.
Like, he never had. So, quick story.
Mm-hmm.
This is about like 3 years ago when WrestleMania was in New York. I don't know if you remember that. It was in
2019.
New York. Yeah.
That was the Kofi Kingston, right? Kofi Kingston.
Yeah.
That was Kofi Mania. Yeah.
And I started a fake beef with Shad online. I didn't think it was
why'd you do that?
Because he just does stuff to do it to being funny.
And then he jumped on it. And then we were going back and forth. We got cool. We got cool online. And before he passed away, he was working on a movie. Or like a TV show type of thing. Like, you ever seen the show Heels?
Yes.
So something like that. Mm-hmm. He was working on something like that of that nature.
He was.
And mind you, we're just cool. We just say things online to each other, nothing crazy. And he had hit us up personally, like, yo, I'm doing a little media tour of different podcasts. You guys are the first podcast I want to show up on.
Dope.
He didn't have to come on. He didn't have to do it at all, but he did. He's one of our biggest guests ever.
Yeah.
Like honestly, one of my favorite interviews, and it's not just because of the what's the situation is, but like when I tell you this man we spent literally almost 2.5 hours. Like we could have talked to him for longer than that if we didn't have to go. But we literally sat in a studio for 2.5 hours and talked to him, and he literally took us on his journey through the E, post WWE, how Vince was still in his ear when SmackDown had went live on Fox and was like, when you're ready, your job is here. We got you. Like when I tell you he spoke so highly of Vince and so and understanding his journey, it just made it more relatable for us, and it made us, I think, more hungry. It made us be like, okay, we got to be able to step it up, because if he's able to tell his journey and live it and understand, being supportive of us without even really knowing us, then we have to pay that forward. And then, with us, when we had did him, and then before we went live, we also did we did JTG as well. So we did both of them. And now looking at it, we should have did both of them at the same time. We did both of them separately. I don't know why we did that, but it's okay.
It happens.
Yeah, it was what it was. But then when we went to WrestleCade, so WrestleCade, for those that don't know, is like, different cities and regions of the country do conventions.
It's like Comic-Con for wrestling.
It's kind of, yeah. So it's one of those. So we had went, and this is 2019. I was like, 2019 was a good year for us. Jesus. So me and Sir Wilkins went down to Winston-Salem, and JTG and Shad was like, yo, we're gonna be there, and we're like, cool, we're gonna bring you guys some shirts.
Right.
And then gave them shirts. We chopped it up, and unfortunately that was the last time we saw him. But like just being in that, but we have like I feel like one of the most famous pictures that really should have went viral when it happened.
It did go viral, actually.
We were, I got the boo bird, so I don't know, but we saw Uncle Steve. So I spent like almost an hour talking to Stevie Ray. I met him for the first time there.
We interviewed Stevie Ray on our show too. Great interview.
And listen, and I was talking to him like he was uncle. So I was with Uncle Stevie for an hour, and then Wilkins and my other homegirl Danny had came back and was like, how are you still talking to him? Like, what y'all talking about? I'm like, I'm enjoying my moment with Stevie Ray. Y'all not gonna mess this up for me. And then we were like, oh, before we go, let's take a picture, because that was really actually the premise of us going over there, was to take a picture. And then I just started to talk to him casually. So we, it started off with just four of us, and then they was hollering, and they was hollering at Faye, they was hollering at Rich Swann, they was hollering at Kiera Hogan, they was hollering at JTG had came over, Shad had came over. Literally, it's the blackest picture I think of that entire week. Literally, but those are the moments so worth it, because it was so organic, and it was like everybody knew everybody. It wasn't even awesome like, ooh, who are you? Oh, you guys are a part of a podcast? Like, oh, like, no, it was, yo, we love this thing called wrestling. We all look alike. We all talk alike. This is what we're bonding over. Let's have this moment. So that's why even after that, I always make sure, no matter where we are, that we have those kind of moments where we just take it in and just be like, okay, this is cool. Like even when we were at Wale Mania, like it was just like, okay, this is cool.
It's interesting because those things, like we did at WrestleCon and just talking to people, just going to their tables and everything.
Right.
It was interesting because when we it was WrestleCade, and we went to WrestleCon just recently in Dallas.
Right.
And I remember the other show I do with Complex, I have a co-host, and she was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, bitch, let's just talk to these niggas. like what we doing? And because she was just like, oh, I don't want to go up to them, because I've been to so many WrestleCades already. It was like my second one. By that, it's like my third one. I was like, yo, what up? Giving dap. I was like, yo, let's just talk to people. She's like, oh, we can just do that? Yes. Let's just because I think we're at the point where all of us know that we belong here. But we're not visitors anymore in this community, or even we're at this point where we're part of the business. Even though we're not particularly like,
we try not to be low key.
We cut our teeth we cut our teeth in the business.
Right.
You would say that, but no, like Jobber Tears is the business.
Yeah. Like
and,
I didn't.
In a weird kind of way, we are the business of wrestling, and it's not just a black-white thing. No, it's just a wrestling thing. We are the business. We
because
do
Nick Aldis called me his favorite. So at that point, that's how I knew I was good.
Yeah,
Nick Aldis has
been on the show. I will always say this: the biggest blessing has been social media for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connected with us on so many levels. Like I remember I did something for because I was first hyped when the Hurt Business won all the titles. I'm fucking hyped. I put a video out for it. Everything was great. MVP like commented on it.
Mm.
And then they broke up. I felt some type of way about it. Then I met MVP like officially, like in person, and he was like, I was like, yo, I appreciate what you do. He's like, hold up, I know who you are. He's like, yo, you still your Jobber Tears? I was like, yeah. And then like Nick,
that's a great invitation, by the way.
I've done about because I fucks with what he's doing. And I'm gonna tell you this right now. Seth saying drip, I don't care what nobody says. That shit is from me.
Yeah.
So we jokingly and I think it was maybe year 2.5, when like certain things that we would say on the podcast or like comments that we had, and then like the next week or two, like whether it was like AEW or WWE, like WWE started, and then when AEW started, but no matter what we were saying, that ended up happening in front of our eyes. So we jokingly would always be like, yo, someone's listening to the podcast. Because it literally would be things we spoke about, and then they'd be on TV. Because look, for instance, when we spoke about Hit Row, and we was talking about in the beginning, because I mean I was cool with it, but like visually they wasn't having it. They was like, something is a disconnect. It's a disconnect. Something ain't there. So we had that conversation on our show. And then maybe like a week or two after that, something switched up with him, and we were all like,
someone's listening.
Like someone heard what we said. And then it came full circle when we actually interviewed Brianna, right? Which was dope. And she was super sweet, because we met her and the boys when me and Wilkins were in Dallas. So we talked to her. We were like, we saw them at For the Culture, and then we saw them at WrestleCon, because they had a table, and they were the only table that had their music playing. So I thought it was dope. Like, presentation is everything for me. So I was like, you guys even marketing yourselves in this way is better than anybody else in this room right now. But even talking to her and interviewing her, and certain things she was saying, we were just like, yeah, like we understood that, and we understood they didn't get it. Like when she talked about the cipher, I thought it was so funny, because I was like, I didn't even know that they didn't understand what a cipher was. So I was like, exactly. If they thought what you guys did was a cipher, somebody got to go back to the drawing board, because that ain't it. And she was saying, she was like, they was trying to tell them, but they wasn't listening, so they gave them what they wanted. Yeah, but it's in those moments where it's just like it's just dope to kind of, those pieces always end up coming together.
I say a moment where everything started coming together. Are you familiar with a wrestler, Sugar D? Well, you might probably know him as Pineapple P.
Yes.
Okay. So it was a show that we was at DC, right? We was there to support Big Swole and everything like that. Shout out to her. She's the champion of Battle Club right now. Shout out to that. And so we was there, yo, Sugar D, how you doing? We laughed with him. He's like, yo, can we get you on the show? Us being us. He said, nah, Jobber Tears, we know who you guys are. Right. Whoever's the rest, we know who you guys are. It'll be an honor to do your guys' show.
Oh, that's dope.
When he said that, he was like, yo, niggas we are like talk among the insiders. And even me being just a ref, me being behind closed door is automatically on the podcast guy. Right. And I'm looking like, even when I went to another show to ref, a guy was just like up and come. He said, I gave him that prop. it felt it. I could tell my words warm up this heart. You feel me, dog?
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. I said another moment when it hit me. It was when fans said that I started podcasting because of y'all.
Yeah.
Damn.
That gets me every time. We're like, what? Because you don't really think, the impact you make. It matters, or the things you do matter, and then you meet people, and that's why like we're so really big on creating this community of wrestling fans that look like us and talk like us, because we didn't have that growing up. All of us, we experienced being the closeted wrestling fan. Like that's just what it was growing up for us. And as adults now, we want to make it where we have whether it's a family or it's a couple, or we have two good friends of ours. They ended up, their first date was a viewing party, and now they're married.
That's cool.
with
kids.
two kids,
Oh,
with
cool.
3 kids. So like
Shout out to them.
things like that, and he wrestles and stuff. So things like that, it shows you like just how wonderful things can be when you guys all come together for the same thing, and you guys can be from different parts, whether it's from the city. Like I had did a panel because I got inspired, and also too we all get inspired by different things. So I never want anyone to think like we just come up with things and it just be what it is. No, this year past at Comic-Con, they did a Black wrestling panel where they had Faye Jackson, they had Kazim, and they had a few other people. And we sat in it because I've never been to Comic-Con, and I paid $75 just to go to the panel. I said I just want to go to the panel. I really don't care about nothing else, because I'm not into this, but this panel. So we sat and supported the people we knew on the panel and enjoyed it, and it was informational and it was really dope. And I sat back and I said, yo, I want to do something like this. And I think it is so important so people can tell their story, but I kind of want to, I always want to put a twist to things, because I always want different point of views for the same thing. And that's always important to me. So like how Mr. Black's now training and refereeing, and how Sir Wilkins is wrestling, they are in the same thing, but they have 2 different points of views of how things are done now. So it's always important to me to showcase that. So we were having shout outs to those wrestling girls. They were having their anniversary party, and I think it was also
for sure.
And I think it was also Survivor Series weekend. So it was kind of like the pregame before Survivor Series, and it was here. So that's the other thing. So I did a panel, but I had each person on the panel was individually, they have a different job in the wrestling business. So I had Nick Shin, who's one of the best referees in the business, hands down, Black, and mind you, everybody on the panel was a person of color. Let's be clear about that. Had Nick on there, had Billy, shout out to Billy, having his show Juneteenth weekend as well, the 17th and the 18th here in Ridgefield Park. So shout outs to him. Had Billy Dixon. He, I love what he's doing with the business. I always want to showcase him because his mind is just amazing. So I had him. I had, of course, one of our guys on Your Sports, Pete Rosado, but then he also started his own wrestling promotion as well, We Are Wrestling, who has a show this weekend as well here in Jersey. So I had him. I had Demon Diva, who I love. Did I tell you because I bumped into her in Dallas? It was so funny. I bumped into her. I did. I bumped her at while I made it. I was like, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "What are you doing here?" Same thing. Why you here, girl? We here. I had her, and she was representing not only herself, but she also does work for Wrestling Inc. .com. And then of course I had Patricia from Those Wrestling Girls, and then I had Cal, who was representing Black Wrestling podcast. So it was just important that every seat was taken by someone that has a different point of view in the business. And in doing those things, it also created, everybody was able to network. And that's also a thing we try to make sure people do. At Jobber Sam, it was so important for me for all the sponsors to know each other, because that's how they end up building relationships. Like my homegirl's baby daddy, but now that's her man again. But my homegirl, it's the truth. It's true. They don't listen. They don't hide it. But he has a podcast, and it was crazy because the last show that Battle Club did, Women Crush Wednesday, He came, like they came together, they brought they daughter, and it was so dope because they was front row and it was cute. But I say that
soccer moment.
Yeah. I say that in that he told me, he was like, listen, I wouldn't have as many people in this podcast game and know and be able to network and collaborate if it wasn't for Jobber Slam. If it wasn't for you guys introducing everybody and saying, like, listen, work together, build together. Like, and that's kind of always been our montage. It's like, listen, there's strength in numbers. I always say that. So for them, I want them to be able to collaborate because, you know, then they like the video gaming and all that, and they do Twitch, you know. So now they're able to create together, and I think that's what it's about.
No, I like one of the things that I'm interested in. Like I said, you guys are a great podcast, a phenomenal podcast. You guys have, you know,
thank you,
inspired others. You guys continue to evolve. And again, it came from somewhere where this podcast, anybody else had what you guys going on at the start of it, probably would have stopped. But you guys kept going, and then look where you are now. You kept going, and now probably one of the most hardworking, best podcasts out there in the game. Individually, though, let's take a step back and look individually, right? So, you know, you are an owner. like,
wow, this is a new one for us.
That's the thing for me where it gets trippy, right? Because usually when you interview somebody, like I do an interview with a podcast, and it's just about the podcast itself. And then you stick with that, and you look at the individuals, and looking at you are an owner. Like how do you I don't understand how all three of you but have the time to be able to be a podcast, be a network, do interviews, do other content, do other business ventures. You're an owner. You two are also trained to get in the business. And then you also have your life at home that you got to do every day, whatever time that is.
I can't.
Yeah.
So
how?
That don't let him fool you on that one. That is a personal thing. Don't even let him get into that. But I will say, whatever. That's a choice.
Go ahead,
anyway, bless you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just like I told you when we were off on off camera and pre-production.
Right.
So you call it. It's like I think it got to a point where it's just on autopilot, and I think it's so important to have the number one thing for me is that I have a phenomenal support system, hands down. These two are lifelines. I know that through and through. But having friends and having a support system that understands the demand and understands that, you know, sometimes you're able to do this and not this, and you have to make certain sacrifices and things like that. I think I will say I'm very grateful that my significant other is very supportive and very understanding as he's sitting here playing video games while I'm recording. But I will say it's so important to have a support system and just understanding that it's not nothing's in vain. Everything has its own story. Everything has a beginning, middle, and end. And knowing, like, once again, we know this will not be the forever, but in knowing what we've done is a part of our history. And I think that's an important part of it. I think for us, just on a mental and spiritual sense, like we just live in what we can control and what is in front of us. And I think that is probably the only way we're able to survive is that we all know each other's strengths and weaknesses. We all know what we gonna do and what we not gonna do.
That's important.
And those two things are super important. So, like, for instance, like what Wilkins is great at, I'm not. He's great with the social media thing. I'm not. But for me, my in person, I will pull up to a show. If I can, I will. And I think, you know, as time has progressed, you know, for us, it's always been us working with our strengths and not working against our weaknesses. So, like, for me, being the people person that I am and stuff like that, I know I can maneuver and talk to people and do that. Wilkins can get in certain rooms and he can maneuver and talk and do and make those opportunities available. Mr. Black, he got the hood, he got the support, he got the people, he's the people's champ. He could do that.
Right.
And be inspirational and be supportive outside and inside of wrestling. That's his thing. So it was very important in the early stages to understand our strengths and weaknesses. Now, when it comes to being an owner, co-owner, right. I won't say it's all on me, but along with Joaquin Morales, a Battle Club Pro, and of course Ray, shout outs to them too. It still hasn't hit me, I don't think, which is the weird part.
How can
Because it's like, what? But it always is weird because then when people will be like, well, owner, boss lady, I'm like, right. I'm just Janelle. I don't understand what you guys are talking about.
When she comes in, everyone stops what they're doing.
Everybody stops. And I'm just like, no, do what you gotta do. I'm just here. I'm not, it's not crazy. But I say that I think for all of us, we all came in it with, of course, goals, and all of us coming in with the things we wanted to do. But our main thing, all of us together, was we wanted to change wrestling.
Right.
We wanted to change the viewpoint. We wanted to change the narrative. We wanted change. And, it even could go back to civil rights and riots and things like that. Like, if you're not a part of the change and you're talking about that's what you want, then what are we doing? So for me, it was always like, a woman of color, loves wrestling, loves the business, loves that it's brought me so much peace in mind and joy and all that stuff. How can I really change the game if I'm not in the game?
Mm-hmm.
So, to be honest, it was never a goal of mine to be a part of an ownership, part of a indie promotion. That was never, even, in my 20s and early 30s, everybody's like, well, why don't you apply for WWE? Like, you love wrestling so much. But, like, that never was my thing.
Oh,
like, I never,
shoot. Wow.
Like, I just wanted
to,
I just love wrestling, and I love to talk about it. And I
full circle.
And I love talking about it with them. So I never really was like, that was not my thing. But it got to a point where it was like, we started, with, of course, that idea of supporting the indies, because that honestly is probably a part, it go hand in hand with social media putting us on another level. Our support in the independent scene has been so heavy that it got to the point where it was like we were sponsoring shows, and then other people started sponsoring shows. Right. And then that was really how people started getting connections and meeting wrestlers and having those relationships. Like, they were all, it was a domino effect. So when Joaquin had asked me, blindly, had no idea it was being asked of me, by the way, because 2 days before Jobber Sam, he hits me up. He's like, yo, we got to talk about something, but after Jobber Sam. I was like, okay, cool.
Right.
I ain't think none of it. I was like, whatever. But it was the truth. We were talking about, I feel like we were talking about we were talking about something for the show, and then he said, oh, wait, by the way, I want to talk to you about something, but after the show. Okay, I ain't worried about it. Cool.
This is
whatever.
2021, right?
This is, yes, 2021.
Right.
This is July 2021. So he's like, listen, I got something to talk to you about, but I'll talk to you after the show about it. Okay, cool. I ain't gonna worry about it. I'm worried about this show. That the week of was the hardest week I feel like we've ever experienced in life. Right. Trying to keep it a secret, trying to keep things running, make sure everything was good, make sure no one kills anybody, like all type of stuff.
Right.
So I wasn't thinking none of it. And then when we get in the ring, we introduce the show, we welcome everybody to the show, and then he's like, I got a question for you. He's like, remember when I asked you, I had something to ask you? And I was just like, yeah, but you said after, I'm so confused. I look dumb as fuck. I probably do when you replay it on Title Match Network. I probably look stupid as hell because I was so confused. And then he's like, well, how would you like to be co-owner? And I was like, why would you ask that in front of everybody and my mama? Why would you ask that? Yep. My mama for 2 months straight asked me, well, do you have an answer? What did you answer? What did you say? Because I didn't. So what happened was he dropped the question. He said the next show I would give the answer. The next show was the anniversary show, which was October. So I had 2 months of like just keeping my lips closed and really honestly thinking, was that something I really wanted? Because that's a lot. Like, that's not an easy task. I don't really wish that on anybody, low key. Right. So I really had to have a conversation, of course, with my significant other too, because anything how I move, it affects him. I can't be blind to that. I had to have a conversation with them because how I move affects them.
Right.
So I had to make sure I had those conversations and had those like talks with people that are in my inner circle that know me and understand like, okay, what should I do? Because I in all honesty, I was gonna say no.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he would have asked me, if I gave an answer that day, it would have been no. It would have been more because I was like, first of all, I don't like surprises, so that's a dub. I hate surprises. And two, I was just like, I don't know if I can handle that. In all honesty, like, with us with the podcast, we're in a good place. We did our first show. We're moving. Right. Now I gotta add this. It was gonna take away from my time with the boys. It was gonna take away time from other shit I wanted to do. Right. It just in life. But I had to really sit and really understand the scope of things. I had to really sit and understand the bigger picture of it. I had to sit and understand that if I'm in this position, that makes it available for someone else that looks like me to be in that position. There were so many, it was more positive than negative. I will say that. So then when the October show came, I said, of course, yes. So, it's a lot. It's not what people think it is.
I can imagine.
But it's also, it put us, our individual things that we do outside of the podcast, it also helps build the podcast at the end of the day. 100%. But Wilkins having the complex deal with, Mr. Black, being a ref now, because all these are opportunities to plug the podcast. These are all things where, now people that, Mr. Black can go referee a show in Wisconsin. And he's wearing his Jabba Tears podcast shirt. And now you got every wrestler backstage asking, well, what's that? Exactly. I'm at a show and people thinking I'm scouting and I'm not. I mean, I could be, but I'm not. But I can have my podcast shirt on. And, for me, and it's not a shot to Joe or any of them, Jabba Tears will always come first for me. And I'm very clear on that because this is our baby. This is what we've worked for, blood, sweat, tears. No one understands the struggle that we've been through but the three of us. So that's why this will always be first. Yeah. And of course, now being part owner of an independent promotion, I have now a duty to make sure that, both sides get fed. Right. That any opportunities that come through the door for the show, the podcast has absolutely all free reign. And of course, everybody that ends up either we book or we do something with, they know us. It's for us, it's always going to be a family affair. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be, we're never going to just do something just to do it. It's never going to be that. So we're very intentional on how we move. We're very intentional on how we do things, whether it's with the podcast or with Battle Club. But, it's growing pains. It's a lot. Right. But, I'll never forget, after Jobber Slam, I had, made sure Swole, got to the airport, because, those logistic things that fans aren't privy to that now I'm a part of.
You're in trouble.
Shit is wild. Okay. I got to make sure the wrestler gets from point A to point B. So that's a whole different level of type of things. But I had made sure, I was talking to Swole, making sure she had a safe flight. And she sent me the most beautiful message that I didn't even tell them. Mm-hmm. She responded to my message saying, I know that now you being a part of Battle Club Pro means that I'm always going to be in good hands. And that seeing a woman of your stature being a part of this is what's needed for the business. And her messaging me that, I said, okay, I got no choice. Right. But to make sure that now I'm stuck.
Now you're
I'm stuck now. So now she right. You're like, oh shit, I can't turn around now. But in her saying that, it made things so much more clear for me that, being a woman of color that loves wrestling, it's not easy for us. It's not easy for us as a culture, but specifically for us and, seeing how things are, now, in wrestling with, women's wrestling, it's so important that we have a voice and that we have somewhere safe where we can be creative and have our ideas met with respect. Because like, just like, you know, with the boys, whether I go to the school or we're at a show, like the same way I come at you, I expect it back. And it's not because I have this co-owner, you know, title to me. It's because I'm still Janelle at the end of the day. So it's so much more important that, you know, even through our journey, we haven't lost who we are. We've actually grown, I think, more than anything as individuals.
I would hope so.
But you'd be surprised though, because people be, you know, still the same old shit. But for us, I would say we've been able to grow together, and I think that's really the ultimate beauty in our podcast. Is you can literally see from episode 1 to the 100th episode to the current episode, everything is different and everything has grown. It's never been like a whole shit. We're not who we are, or we don't claim to be something that we're not. So, but being co-owner is a lot, but I take it in knowing that there could be a little girl that comes to a show.
That's right.
And sees me and sees everybody else there, but sees me opening up Jabra Sam and saying, I can do that.
Right.
I can be, there's a picture. We talked about it. It was that picture of the black girl looking at Naomi. And the way she looked at her was like, I can do that. Like, I've never seen someone that looks like me that's there, and I can do that. So, you know, I say that I'm just here for the journey, for the ride, and I'm excited, and I'm excited that my brothers are with me, a part of that, because that was also my, you know, like I said, my major thing was making sure we was always going to be good, and you know, and we are, so, and we're probably actually better for it. And then now with him and the complex deal. And, you know, being super proud of him, you know, just all of us doing our own thing, it just builds to the brand, it builds to the network, and it builds to us as a community. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be able to, you know, whether it's 2 years, 3 years from now, if I decide to be like, well, I just want to live life and, you know, it'll be what it is, I can walk away saying I don't regret anything and I've done everything that I wanted to do. And I think that's the cool part.
Oh, you know, Mr. Black, you also have this you also have this Stud Ed Kid podcast along too. How'd that start?
All right. It started with the Dirty Hip podcast. Dirty Hip podcast. That podcast is done in the basically in the trap house with the Short Bud production. We started as just like I interviewed him.
Why would he even say that?
I don't.
It's true.
We're late in the interview. He's going now.
So like I interviewed them because these are my brothers, you know. Right. Good brother Bo, aka Freedom Brother, Coffee, aka Coffee Weaveston, you know. They're my brothers. So I interviewed them from an old show I used to do called the Mr. Black's Show, and I was like, yeah, and then we clicked in person. Right. So then I said, hey, we all was a special ed. Let's do it. And then one thing led to another, and then we just started doing it consistently. And in the show, I feel that when it comes to like talking about mental health, being a man, it's only told from a very, I like to say, from a hurt point of view. You understand? Oh, this girl did this, did that. It's all about point. But not one time none of these guys ever say, I'd have boundaries to myself. You understand? I let this girl linger on because I like that self-love. Nobody's gonna tell the truth. Everybody wanna be cool on the internet, but not realizing that my generation suffered from the coolness. We want to be cool so much that we missed out on a lot of cool things to actually do, like kayaking, rock climbing, all of that, because we was too cool. While Jeezy was telling us to trap or die, he was telling his kids to go to college. So,
yo, did y'all have a snowman shirt growing up?
No, but I definitely bumped his album. If I still do to this day. But
wait, so Queens, Queens niggas didn't wear snowman shirts?
No, they did, but no. But it was like the fad came quick. It was quick. It was very. It came. It was like hot for a couple of months, and then they stopped. G-Unit was too big.
I was like, G-Unit was in Queens. Was from Queens.
It was too big. But overall, I did it. And then me, Bob, and Kofi, we've been doing it. And like, it's a great way for us to talk about real issues. talk about how we went through, talk about our breakups, talk about our journey from then until now to encourage young men out there like, yo, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to talk about how you feel. So as far as that wise, I love it. I love doing that on the side. And refereeing came about was Nick, talking to Nick.
Mm.
Nick is like only the few black people in the East Coast that does referee, right? And so far, I think I'm the second one, basically. It's not a lot of black people. So I did it. Right, there's not. So it was back of my head. I was in these things. If you ever go to the show with me, I talk shit to wrestlers. I love that shit. I'm the guy in the audience. I tell a wrestler that, yo, you suck. This, that, and third. Like, I was at the fighting wrestlers, kayfabe, because I do it like I said. I'm respectful. If you're a bad guy, I'm gonna boo you. Right. That's who. As a bad guy, you don't know what to cheer for. You want to look at somebody like, ooh, somebody hate me. It's contagious. It's just like the Wu-Tang. If you want to make something hot, you gotta be the first one to say, "Hey, make it hot." So I did it, and then I was in DC. Shout out to Spicy of the Fallout Shelter, part of the Hive. She was like, "Hey, Mr. Black, you should be my manager." I was just like, it was in DC. I was cheering, booing, I was loud. And mind you, I'm from New York, so I'm ready to stand out already, son. So boom. The next year, she's doing managers. Then I was like, you know what? Let me take this referee thing. Next thing you know, I went to school for reffing. I started liking it. I love reffing. I love the experience of it. I just love even I'm in wrestling school, me taking the bumps, me encouraging my fellow man. It humbles me because my message is doing reffing is anything's possible. You put your mind to it. And once you understand the biggest hurdle is you, and once you understand that you have done successful stuff in other ways, such as you was able to be adult up to this point of you just doing what you did. Imagine you put more effort into it. You accomplish so much more. So the reffing definitely gave me a sense of, I won't say purpose, but it reminded me of it's never too late to learn a new skill. It's never too late to expand. So this is why reffing and the Sped Kids, please check that out. New episode. I listened to this new episode should be out right now.
Yep.
So that's our little journey, dogs. Oh, during that time, during the whole time doing podcasts, I went through a journey of becoming a man during this time. You understand? When you don't know your value, you just try to find value in anything, but not realizing that your true value lies with you. So this is why I take the responsibility of a podcast real seriously, because, like I said, if we look good, people see, oh, the Jobbeteers, who else is in the network? Like the network is important. I don't just network of who does the show with us. It's network of our fruit tree. Who is Mr. Black is chilling? Who's like Mr. Black shouting out? Who's Janelle shouting out? This is why it's important of we stay on point. So yeah, that's my journey. And they call me the chocolate rep. So
chocolate rep. That's perfect.
Who calls you that? I'm sorry. What?
The last event. It's like chocolate rep.
Well, okay, so wait, I have a question.
You know what? If you like it, I love it.
I have a question now. Wait a minute. Who is calling you this? Like, who is like
the first time that I went out to ref, right? No one knew. Okay. I got thrown in the battle royal. It was a surprise, and everyone was going to reference.
I knew, and I couldn't tell it, and I was mad because I couldn't tell anybody that I knew, but I didn't want to tell anyone because I wanted everyone's honest reaction when they saw him in the ring. So when they saw him, we were cheering so hard. He did a really good job because he kept his face straight. He didn't really laugh. He was serious. He did his job. He did the referee job. Right. So we put over the ref more than anybody else was in the ring. I felt so bad after the match. I said, oh, shit. we buried the girls and didn't mean to. Oh. But it was because we were so excited for him. Yeah, but we were so excited for him because, it's one thing to say you want to do something, but it's another when you actually do it. So the fact that he set this goal, he started training, he started taking it serious, And now he's here, and we wanted him to know we were proud of him. So that's why we were like hollering, but not knowing that we fucked up that whole match low key. But everyone loved it though. We fucked up that match.
Yep.
I felt bad after it. I was like, shit.
Yep. And the Sped Ed podcast that comes out.
Listen. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. Like I record on Tuesdays. But for looks of it, whatever I say, I'm sticking to it. It comes out every Friday.
All right.
That's it.
Okay. All right. So every Friday, SEScoops. Every Friday, check out the Sped Ed podcast. I thought the couple of episodes that I've heard informative. You guys are really getting into something that's deep and talking about love, talking about relationships, talking about stuff like that, where some people won't be able to be open about that, but you guys are. So definitely worth listening to. And congrats on also becoming a ref.
Thank you, dog.
Definitely. So Wilkins.
Yeah.
Man, when I heard about the news of the Complex deal, and then I saw your face just with a wide smile, I thought like I was surprised by like how much that didn't get talked about enough. But then I'm like, oh no, this is something that's gonna change the independent wrestling game, right?
Yep.
Because not only is it it's you from the Jobbers Tears podcast. It's also Alex from Church of Joshi.
Mm-hmm.
And Complex had first of all, how did that pairing come together? How did you and Alex get together to do the podcast?
So a little backstory. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you too much, but for the most part, this has been in works for 3 years. This show.
3 years.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I said 3 years.
Interesting.
So no, not 3, 2. I would say 2.5 for the most part.
Yeah, I would say about 2.5.
So
interesting.
Complex had like was interested in me, and then they kind of were interested in the podcast, doing something with the Jobber Tears.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted to do something with me for a while, actually.
Right.
And I'm always trying to put the team on, so I'm trying to put figure out what we're trying to do.
Right.
There was originally another co-host that was supposed to be on there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
But one of the issues was that he was signed to a bunch of other stuff as we were trying to figure out where we're gonna stick the show unsanctioned at.
Right.
So he ended up he couldn't do voice stuff because it's crazy what's in niggas' contracts nowadays. Like you can't do certain types of content which is similar to what you're signed with in like a certain type of way and everything.
Right.
So long story short, I remember we were in meetings and I mentioned Alice. I was like, well, she does a lot of stuff. She has a strong social media following.
Right.
To reach out to her. And if you guys were interested in that, because I was already in consideration already, and a lot of people there, which I didn't know until later on, were fans of my stuff at Complex. So some people knew who she was and everything, and they asked her to do the show on Spotify Live,
right?
And then she agreed, and then that's how we ended up working together. We knew of each other, and we've met each other on through passing and like through the independent scene. Mm-hmm. I've actually interviewed her when I was doing like my fake version of like quarantine radio, but the wrestling style. So I did interview her when we were on lockdown.
Right. So
I'm familiar with her. She's familiar with Jobber Tears, like, and then she's actually really good friends with one of my ex-girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
So I know her.
Oh.
I'm not saying the person's name on this fucking thing, man.
Come on, Janelle. You know her.
No, I didn't. I meant like you could have said something that would have made me be like, okay, I know who you're talking about. Oh, wait, you know what? Never mind. I know who you're talking about.
I like how Mr. Black just sipped the drink just at that right moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So
because I didn't realize who. I was like, what? I was like, who knows? I was like, oh wait, I know.
Yeah. So you know we came together. We actually had a meeting before. I was like, listen, this is what we're trying to do.
Right.
You know, and this is what I'm trying to do. And then for the most part, we're in the same place when we were trying to do it. And when we were told that we were going to do the show, I was like, all right, cool. It's finally come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And as of right now, Complex is happy with it. Spotify is very happy with it as well. It's at a really good place.
Right.
But at the same time, it was like, all right, this is one thing, but this is all part of it's in my mind, it's under the Jobbeteers umbrella.
Right.
Because it's because I'm part of Jobbeteers, so obviously it's helping Jobbeteers. But ironically, the guests that we've had on was because of Jobbeteers in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that. You know, it's obviously having the Complex name behind it.
Right.
Helps out and makes it easier to get certain guests on, but the brand Jobbeteers and me, who people know who I am and my connection within the business, have helped get certain guests on. And certain guests we've had that we had Jobbeteers interview. We just interviewed Thunder Rosa. We've had her on the Jobbeteers show.
Right.
Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale is one of my first interviews, probably like my Austin Theory is like my second or third, like I mentioned before, but Willow is like my first, one of my first ones.
Right.
And it's on the Jobbeteers Network page right now.
And I interviewed her at a Battle Club Pro show. And I remember we were doing an interview for Complex, and it was like, yo, she was like, yeah, I remember you interviewing me. Because as much as, like I said, we're deeply entrenched into the wrestling community, Jobbeteers.
Right.
So a lot of stuff, we were able to maneuver and have these people on the Complex show because of the little bit of connects that I have within the community.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been a blessing. It's been a great ride with the Complex show, and it's like you said, it's showing that complex like content creators are needed. Black content creators are needed within this community.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been nothing but a blessing, man. Nothing but a blessing.
And like I said, it's like that happening, like you and Alex getting together and two independent podcasters and content creators coming together to work with Complex. To me, that it just goes to show that we're in such a great time right now in terms of just content creators. Like, and we're gonna see people. We're gonna see more of this. We're gonna see podcasts and networks like you guys potentially being exclusive, maybe one day to a Spotify or to an Apple or to these other corporate giants that or sponsors that want to be attached to podcasting. Podcasting now is such a big game and it's such a huge market that is now infiltrated the wrestling space to where now they want corporate organizations like SeatGeek and they want to be a part of this.
You know what's crazy? I studied, I wouldn't say studied, but I was watching a lot of it, and I knew podcast was going to get bigger.
Right.
Because I kept listening to Joe Budden's, Charlamagne the God, Brilliant Idiots, and I know he's a little very, like, people love him or hate him. Gary V spoke about voice content.
Mm-hmm.
And how important and how that's the future.
Right.
Now, I don't know if he has a stake into something. That's why he be knowing shit.
Right.
But I remember listening to watching a ton of his videos and just listening, and he's like, the voice content is the future. And now you have live room apps, which is Amazon got one now.
Right.
We saw what Clubhouse did during the pandemic. Yep. Now Spotify Green Room is doing something, and podcast is a thing. You saw how much money Joe Rogan got.
Exactly.
So it is a thing. We're going back to the age of radio,
right?
Without us even knowing it. And it's interesting, and that's why the podcast stuff has grown because we had the age of radio, but we only had like whatever little bit of channels that we had before.
Right.
Now we have a plethora of content through podcasts, and you know, we have the cell phone, which helps you able to listen to anything anywhere.
Right.
So that's why we have been very successful at what we've done in our space, because this is the future. Voice content is the future. And we also have our YouTube page, obviously. Follow that as well.
Right.
Subscribe, like, we'll do all that good shit. And you know, that's the future. Content, voice is the future. Like I was telling them on the show this past episode, how Formula One is a thing now.
Yeah.
Formula One is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I read this thread, this Twitter thread of how Formula One has gotten so much bigger. Long story short, Formula One has I'm going to throw a number out there. It's not the exact number. Has like almost 3 times more fans than the NFL.
Really?
And yeah. But
like that, yeah.
the NFL revenue is about 6 or 7 times more than Formula One.
Well, that's because of the TV deals and stuff.
But it's not even the TV deals. It's because people just fucks with it a whole lot harder.
Oh, well, I guess people got
and they spend on it. So one of the things that they were saying was that this company called Liberty Media bought Formula One for whatever price that they did. And what they did to expand and grow it, because they've grown so much over the 3 or 4 years since they owned it, social media. They got busy with social media, allowed the car drivers to use their social media. And they got to deal with Netflix. One of the main things the thread was saying that was content was king. And then because of that content, it helped grow the brand.
Right.
And I tell anybody that has a podcast or is trying to do a podcast, keep putting out content. Keep putting out content, keep putting out content, keep putting out content, and grow whatever little village you have. You know what I mean? Like it does wonders, and then when you have that built-in village, big companies come to you like, hey, can we get a piece of that? Because big companies don't know how to curate talent, curate content. They don't. I don't understand why they don't when they have so much fucking money. But most big companies don't know how to curate content or how to build an audience. So that's why they come to content creators who have their own built-in audience already. Whatever amount, it could be a small amount or a high amount, but they know their engagement is high.
Right.
So they call these people over and then be like, yo, hey, come on board and we'll pay you because we're paying for you and your audience.
Right.
Your built-in audience that you have. And this goes back to me studying what Joe and his Spotify deal. See what Brilliant Idiot's been doing. See what Charlemagne does. All this other stuff is watching them and understanding, okay, this is what we got to do. We can do it on over here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, definitely. And again, this is just what makes such a beautiful time. Is just like I said, like when I was first getting into wrestling podcasting, there wasn't really a lot of wrestling Black podcasters. And now I'm seeing people like myself that look like me doing great things, and just now you got yourselves, you got the Black Announce Table podcast, you got the Black Wrestling podcast, you got the Public Enemies. Like everybody is doing great and doing successful. And I just can't wait to see, and I always bring this up, I can't wait to see what the next generation does. Like the people that's going to come after you are going to look at what all you guys are doing right now and what you're going to be having, the deals you're going to be making, the history that you're going to be making.
Yeah.
What they're going to see and what they're going to come after that. because it's gonna be incredible.
So how you heard about us, by the way?
How you heard? I just heard about you by just looking around on YouTube, and that's how I found you. Looking at interviews, and then it would keep just go. And it's one thing. But the beautiful thing about YouTube is just you watch one video, you watch another video, then you watch another video, and you stay on it.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. With social media,
and you have a network. Which again, that's like what say forward thinking. You have a network to where, hey, you got wrestling. Oh, we got sports. Oh, we got life issues. Like that's the beauty of it. And you guys have that. And I again, just credit to you guys for all the hard work that you do, and
thank you.
Continuing to evolve, both as a group and both individually. So
thank you.
Credit to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we head out, I know you also have an event coming up on May 29th, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have our AEW viewing party for Double or Nothing. So you can RSVP. If you are part of our Facebook group, you can RSVP there, or you can email us to RSVP. But yeah, and it's interesting. Wilkins always talks about it, how the demographic of the viewing parties change when it's WWE versus AEW. It is wild.
Right.
That is a wild difference. I'll tell you that.
Definitely is.
Where it's gonna be at?
Legends Bar.
So 33rd between 5th and 6th. If you are free, come through. First drink on me. Come through, have a good time watching AEW. But yes, we'll have that. And then the following weekend, we'll be back at Legends for Hell in a Cell. And then Juneteenth weekend. And Wilkins, if you can send him the information for Black Wrestle Fest. Pretty Heels is doing a Black Wrestle Fest conference. Juneteenth weekend, so the 18th and the 19th, but Battle Club Pro is doing the show, which I have the flyer. We have the flyer for, so we'll send that to you as well, so you can have that. Battle Club Pro will be presenting the wrestling portion of the convention on Juneteenth, aka Father's Day. So it's Father's Day weekend too, but yeah, we have that, and then once that finishes, we are on the fast track to Jobber Slam 2, which is August 20th. In Brooklyn as well. So we got a busy summer going.
Yeah. Busy summer, but I like it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Like I told you before we started, we don't get to do this often. We're typically the ones doing the interview. So it's good to be on the other side. Trust me, it's not often that we get to. But no, we appreciate the support. We appreciate you actually coming into the situation prepared. And I think that highlighted. I'm not gonna hold you. That type of shit impresses the fuck out of me because not everybody does that. So from another person that does interviews to a person that does, and seeing how prepared you were, that was super dope. And
thank you.
Of you taking the time out to do that, because once again, time is money and money is time. So no, we do appreciate that. But let us know if you come out for AW, and we'll take care of you. Not a problem.
Thank you. Before anywhere we can follow you guys. You're not on the Bluebird.
I'm not on the Bluebird. They gotta go through them.
So just to see our stuff, we're on Jobber Tears podcast, and we'll have links to everybody else's social media from there.
Yes. But you can, as he said, you can follow us on the Jobber Tears podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also subscribe to the Jobber Tears Podcast Network page. So not only our podcast is on there, but of course our networks, the Your Sports, previous episodes of That Song Talk, previous episodes of Black Neighborhood, 2.5 Bros. So hopefully some of those shows get to re-up sooner or later. But everyone's busy, but everyone's working. And, once again, we do appreciate literally every person, whether you didn't believe in us, whether you believed in us from day one. We thank you, because whether it was the haters or the people that support us, we always had the drive to move forward, and no matter what we did. So we thank everybody for being a part of our, this is as much as, everybody else's journey than ours. So we're just glad that we're all in this together.
Thank you, guys. I definitely appreciate you giving me the time, especially with your busy
thank you,
schedule.
thank you.
No, thank you,
Thank
especially
you.
with you still under the weather.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But it's been a pleasure. Signing off. My name is Tyriece Simon. This has been Get to Know the Jolly Tears podcast. We are out. Have a nice day, guys.
Later.
Thank
Later, y'all.
you.